For as much talk as there was about the Arizona Cardinals being really bad last year, let's not forget that the San Francisco 49ers sucked really bad too. Like really, really bad. So bad, in fact, that they ended up with the number 2 overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. You can blame that on the early season Garoppolo knee injury, but really, truly, did we even know enough one way or another to know how much better of a team they would have been or would not have been with Garoppolo in the lineup or not in the lineup? I mean, I feel like it's a fair question. Like, how much better do you know that you were going to be with Garoppolo? But what you do know is that this 49ers team has a lot of holes and a lot of issues on their roster, and frankly, I still feel like they do. They tried to go out there and make some moves happen. They gave Quan Alexander a lot of money to play in that linebacking core next to Fred Warner. That should be an upgrade there. They bring in Dee Ford as an edge rusher, giving up a second-round pick in order to get him, which is kind of interesting for a team that has invested so much in their front four, so much in their pass rush. Now you're trading for another pass rusher as you're getting ready to take one, number 2 overall. It was a curious decision to me. But you've got another edge rusher there in Dee Ford. You've got some of these other guys that you've taken in previous years, the Buckners, the Armsteads, Solomon Thomases. Hopefully those guys can figure out their role on the defensive line. We know Buckner's a stud, but Armstead's been mildly disappointing. And believe me, Solomon Thomas has certainly been disappointing at this stage of his career. But now you've got the 49ers going into the season. Jerick McKinnon, who was a big free agent signing in last offseason. Now he's going to miss a second straight season due to an injury. That's got to be a bust of a signing right there. You feel bad, Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, hopefully healthy from the ACL tear, but who is he really going to have to work with in that offense is a fair question. When you look at the 49ers and what they did in the draft, Nick Bosa at number 2 overall, it was kind of a no-win situation for the 49ers. Ideally, you would have liked to have had a wide receiver or even a running back that was truly worth that draft position, and it just did not really materialize that way. They're in a spot where they're staring down the barrel of either Nick Bosa or Quinnen Williams, and they're going to realistically have to choose between one of them. Kind of an unfortunate spot for them. They really needed help on offense. They did well for themselves taking Mike McGlinchey, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame last year, 9th overall, but they needed more help on offense, and weren't really in a position to get that. So you got to do what you got to do. And they spent their next couple of picks on receivers, Deebo Samuel from South Carolina, Jalen Hurd from Tennessee. Excuse me, did I say Tennessee or Baylor? Whatever, who cares? Formerly of Tennessee anyway. So hoping that those guys could come in along with Dante Pettis and provide some help on the outside to open things up even more for their stud tight end George Kittle over the middle. Looking at this team, what is there to actually like about them? The aforementioned George Kittle. Like, he was a revelation. He was a stud, former 5th-round pick from Iowa. He was a dude last year, and I don't see any reason why he won't be a dude and the primary option in the passing game here for Jimmy G and the 49ers in 2019. You look at Joe Staley and Mike McGlinchey, they've got a really good tandem of tackles there. It's a good situation to put a still relatively young quarterback into, to be able to know that he's going to be protected well up front, protected well on the edges, especially coming off of their torn ACL, has to give him some peace of mind. And you would have to assume, just by default, that this defensive line of the 49ers should be really, really damn good. Should be really, really damn good. You have invested so many picks and so much money into this position in recent years. At some point in time, there has got to be a payoff. We know Buckner's a stud. We can assume Bosa probably ends up being a certain level of stud. Dee Ford should be an effective pass rusher on the other side. If you get Armstead or Thomas to produce anything at all, then you talk about one of the best defensive line units in the league. And you could do a lot with that. You could bring them in waves, and you could rotate them in and out and keep them fresh. Like, to be able to do that, it's what the Eagles did in part on their way to the Super Bowl a couple of seasons ago. Being able to bring in all these pieces on the D-line and be able to exchange them in and out, you want to be able to do that, and they're in a position to do that. The question marks, though, are a lot of other areas on this team. I think the Alexander signing, carrying him with Fred Warner in the linebacking core, has made that linebacking core a lot better. The secondary I'm still kind of on, but the receiving core, a lot of young guys, a lot of unproven guys. Dante Pettis, I like him, but is he really a number 1 wide receiver type of dude? Is Deebo Samuel that type of guy? Jalen Hurd that type of guy? You're realistically looking at your tight end George Kittle being your number 1 option in the passing game. How do you feel about that one? And then when you look at this team, You got to come back to Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they'll be able to run the ball okay, at least decently enough. But what are you going to get at Jimmy G? Is he actually going to be able to stay healthy? Is he going to produce? Because as much as everybody was fascinated by him in 2017 and talking about his performance, statistically, he was not that great. And early on in 2018, he was not that great at all. So are we all of a sudden going to see a Jimmy G that we haven't seen before? One that can actually stay healthy and one that plays at a higher level than what he has previously. We talk a lot about Kyle Shanahan being a great offensive mind and play caller. Well, here is going to be the time to prove it. As you really, truly need to know what you've got in Jimmy G. Because if you find out that he sucks, you're going to have to sit there and find that dude. And when you talk about like my Bears and the talk about them trading up from 3 to 2 to get Trubisky instead of a Watson or Mahomes, let's not forget that the 49ers originally had that second pick and did not have designs on any of those 3 quarterbacks. They took Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster, ultimately, with 2 first-round picks. That is looking like historical levels of bad right now. They better hope to God that the guy that they traded for in the middle of that 2017 season, Jimmy G, becomes that guy. Because if he doesn't, knowing that they passed on Mahomes and Watson, it's really hard to justify if you're the 49ers organization keeping around John Lynch after this season. And you really have to rethink how you're doing things as a team. Looking at their schedule early on, week 1 at Tampa Bay, week 2 at Cincinnati. Here's a chance early on to get a couple of wins in the win column and games on the road. Got to be able to win on the road in the NFL. Here's a chance against 2 potentially lesser opponents to be able to get a couple of early season wins and get some momentum. And you got to follow that up. Week 3, you're hosting Pittsburgh. And, these are the types of games traditionally that Pittsburgh can kind of struggle with a little bit. And then in the middle of the season, weeks 9 to 12, you got Arizona on the road, and then you host Seattle, host Arizona, host Green Bay. So you're talking about a stretch of 3 straight home games there. There is an opportunity here early on. The 49ers could potentially win a couple of road games, set themselves up well, and then take advantage of that stretch of time at home, weeks 10 through 12 here. We could be talking about a team with an outside chance at the playoffs. I just don't see it. I'm not enough of a believer in Jimmy G. I think they still have too many holes in their receiving core. I think they have too many holes on defense still. I think this is realistically probably a team that's another year away. If Jimmy G goes out there and throws for 4,000 plus yards, so be it. I'll eat the crow on this one. But until he does it, he's not going to do it, in my opinion. So I think the 49ers are a 7-9 team and finishing 3rd in the NFC West and out of the playoff picture again.